Hi, everyone. I hope that everyone is well. We've got people joining on. We've got a good group already, and we will start in 2 minutes. I'm Linda Spencer, the Director of International for SEMA. I'm pleased to say that I know most everyone coming on the call, and we have some new people. And we also have a number of representatives from the US government on the line, both based here in the States and abroad and around the US. And we also have SEMA staff. We're joined by Bill Miller, our Senior VP, and we have the international staff. And thanks, Gary, from the Education Department for helping us with this webinar today. So really welcome everyone. As you can see on your screen, there's a listing of the 2020 and 2021, the SEMA Show, PRI, our overseas trips, and the next of our webinars. So we'll have a total of 6 or 7 webinars, and the second one is planned, and we'll come back to you with additional as they're set. I want to jump into our program because we are going to stick to 1 hour. It's exactly 2. So we are very pleased to have with us today Joel Molina. He is an international trade specialist with the SGS, and SGS and Joel provide exporters guidance on the procedures and standards for exporting to countries throughout the Middle East and Africa. And many of you have already met Joel, as he's participated in our export fair in Diamond Bar last year. And Joel just gave us some good news that he has even additional information for us that we will follow up with. Joel will provide today details on this Saber Saleem program. It's a newly enforced testing and reporting regime for a wide range of products, not just automotive, but of course we'll focus on automotive today. Thanks everyone. I've received great questions from many of you, and I have forwarded them all to Joel, including a few we received today. If there are questions that are not addressed during the presentation, if everyone can look, you have a little button, I think, that says questions. Please write your questions. I'll see them, and we will go through them after the presentation. So welcome everyone, and looking forward to a great presentation. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Joel Molina. So thank you, Joel.
Good day, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone's doing okay today. As Linda stated, my name is Joel Molina. I'm with SGS. Basically, what we do is we manage certification programs for quite a few countries throughout the Middle East and Africa. They have the programs in place to make sure that no subpar goods are, hitting the markets in their countries. So it's more for the protection of consumers. As Linda stated, today we'll be focusing on Saudi Arabia and auto parts. My presentation is up on the screen, so I'm going to kind of run through it now. Believe Linda, we're going to wait till the end for questions.
Yes, that's true. We will wait for the end. If there's something that's not clear, if people send a question, that would be, we could, I can just ask for clarification on their behalf. Otherwise, we can ask the questions at the end.
All right, perfect. Okay, so the new program in Saudi Arabia is called Saleem Saber. Saleem is basically a list of products, HS codes and whatnot, that Saudi considered, they want to keep a tight grip on those importing of those products. So anything that falls into that list, this includes auto parts, oil rigs, lipsticks, cosmetics, anything, has to go through what's called the Saber portal. Now, the Saber portal, some of you may already be familiar with it. Saber is a online platform where importers in Saudi Arabia registered products that they intend to bring in. And then from there, it's split up into regulated and unregulated. So today we're going to go through the regulated products. Anything that's unregulated has to go through a different process. Frankly, you won't even need to contact SGS for those products. Anything that is regulated, however, you do need to reach out and you do have to go through the certification process. All right, so here's a little flow chart, kind of going through the process. Understand that this program or Saber is for importers only. An exporter will not be the ones to go in and list the products. That's for importers only.
Yeah, so Joel, what you're explaining here is that the person actually entering the information is someone based in Saudi Arabia, and they could do it
That's
on your
correct.
behalf. So that this is for everyone to have a general understanding of Saber, but as a non-Saudi based company, you wouldn't be the one entering the information.
That's correct. That's correct. All right, so there's two certificates that you need in this program. The first one is called a product certificate of conformity. We've referred to it as a PCOC or a PC for short. This certificate is valid for a year. It's based upon product test reports and technical specs, certifications. Basically, you have to prove that the product meets the safety and quality standards for Saudi Arabia. Some products are considered very high risk, and for those products, there's an additional requirement for a factory audit. I'm going to leave this up. If anybody wants to see this later, please feel free to let Linda know. This there's nothing in here that can't be passed along. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. Here's a little scope, not completely comprehensive, but it kind of covers most of the products that I've seen anyway that are going into Saudi at this point in time. So this is mostly what I've been focused on for the most part. But like I said, it's not a complete comprehensive list. All right. So going back to the PCOC, that certificate is valid for a year. Once we issue that, you also have to get what's called a shipment certificate, which is valid on a per shipment basis. Okay. So that certificate has to be requested for each individual shipment. The fee for PCOC usually runs about $533. If a factory audit is required, that's going to cost an additional $1,200 plus travel. Now, in dealing with auto parts, there's two main focuses. There's OEM and there's aftermarket. Anything that's OEM falls into what Saudi calls Scheme 1A. No factory audit is required for products that fall into Scheme 1A. So if it's an OEM genuine spare part, you do not have to have a factory audit. However, if it's an aftermarket part, that falls into what Saudi considers Scheme 3. All aftermarket parts, a factory audit is required at the manufacturing facility. So keep that in mind. Now, when requesting the PCOC, it can get very difficult, okay? The grouping parameters, the major grouping parameters that Saudi focuses on are product description, HS code, manufacturer, and country of origin. This can get rather difficult and lead to lots of mistakes made by importers when they're requesting the PCOC. So just to give you an example, if you have the same product with the same HS code and the same manufacturer manufactured in two different countries, you cannot have those. You have to have separate PCOCs for that product. One that has made in China and another one that has made in USA, for example. All right. And the same goes for every product. If any one of these is different, it has to have its own PCOC. Product families, of course, can all be grouped together. Now, this is where we have what we call the SGS VIP program. In this program, lots of importers are taking advantage of this because they basically outsource all the groupings of the products to SGS. They give us a list of the products. We gather the rest of the information, and we group all the products together. The reason this is very beneficial is because when importers are requesting their PCOC, if they even request one extra PCOC, that's an additional $533, possibly an additional $1,700 if you include the factory audit, when it would not have been necessary. So lots of importers are taking advantage of this program. They outsource all of the secretarial work to SGS. Basically, we do all of the menial work of inputting all the information into Saber, grouping all the products, and then requesting the PCOCs, requesting the shipment certificates as well. Now, the fee for the VIP program starts at $500. $500 gets you 100 products listed in Saber. For each product thereafter, there's an additional $5. Okay, the minimum fee is $500. That's 100 products. The additional products are $100 each. I just covered this. This is the genuine spare parts and the aftermarket parts as well. Remember, genuine spare parts, scheme 1A, aftermarket parts, scheme 3, requirement for factory audit. Here's just some more information on what type of information is required to certify the product. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with most of this information: third-party test reports, ISO 16949. Aftermarket parts, like I said, the factory audit should be listed there. That is a requirement for all aftermarket parts. I want to stress that because it's very important when you're contacting your suppliers to let them know that if it is aftermarket, factory audit is going to be required. Here's some of the label and marketing requirements. One thing I neglected to mention at the beginning is inspections are no longer necessary. So we don't need to inspect every single shipment. Some of you may have been working under the old program where you submit all your technical documentation, SGS sends an inspector, they take pictures and whatnot. That's no longer necessary. The only time we'll send somebody out is during the factory audit if it's necessary. Other than that, everything is just paperwork. We ask you to send us pictures of the markings. These can change depending upon the product, but this is mostly what we'll be looking for. You send us the pictures, that's all we need. No need for inspections any longer.
Joel, could you go back to that slide?
Yes.
Yes. What is ECAS and EQM?
Those are, hold on. That's a quality mark is what it is. So for some products, you have to get what's called a quality mark. I don't have a full list of, I'm trying to think, I don't think there's any auto parts that
I don't
quality
think
mark.
so, but we'll get back to.
Yeah, that's more to do that's more to do with products that are like motors, things like that. If you want to ship some sort of motor for a product, then those require like quality marks, things like that. Sometimes
so it's interesting. We do ship lots of motors, but they're not in the automotive realm. So we'll look into that and see if there's something relevant. I think that the spare parts regulations specifies that things like engines are not covered for auto parts, but let's revisit that after. So thanks, Joel.
All right, absolutely. All right, so this is just to let you know that basically we're a one-stop shop. We can do the testing, the certifications, inspections if necessary, but not so much for Saudi Arabia, anywhere across the globe. So basically our VIP program is specifically built mostly for importers because they may have several suppliers throughout the globe. So instead of, contacting different offices, trying to collaborate between different SGS offices. We have our VIP program where you route everything directly through our office here in the United States. If anything's needed from a different country, we'll take care of that for you. You just give us the contact information, we'll reach out and gather all the information. So we're a global company, we can handle all of that for you.
Joel, can you,
Yes.
yeah, if you could explain, put this in context. So why are companies like yours involved in the process? You might explain what authorized entities are. You know, you're one of many entities, but if
Right.
you could explain what this, where your involvement and the Saudi government, how that interacts.
Yeah, so Saudi implemented what's called a product conformity assessment program. This was many years ago to keep a check on subpar products that are entering their market. So they outsourced this program to several companies, SGS, and there's several others, to basically vet the products, to check the test reports, inspect it, make sure all the markings are there, anything dealing with safety, that it's in Arabic, things like that. So basically that's where we come in. We do all of that for, usually before it was mostly the exporters we were working with. Lately dealing with Saleem, it's mostly on the importers, but this is where SGS comes in. We do the testing for you if you need it. We do the inspections if you need it. So that's where that's kind of SGS's role in all of this. We do this for several countries: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt, Kenya, very many countries throughout Middle East and Africa.
Yeah, so that's a good summary. So basically, Saudi Arabia has moved to this third-party testing and pretty much outsources a lot of the work. So you would need to work with a third-party testing agency, including someone like an SGS. So that is how the system is set up. They have designated various entities. SGS is one of them, and you would work through them to complete, and for those products that require testing. So that's why Joel has come in and visited. Actually, we've had a couple people from SGS come over the years, and why he's here today. It's one of the approved, and it has to be an approved testing agency.
Correct. Yeah, one of the major requirements in going to outside testing is the accreditation. So when you go to a lab, the lab has to be ISO 17025 accredited.
Yeah.
If it's not ISO 17025 accredited, then the test report will not be accepted by Saudi Arabia.
Thanks. And where would they find a list of the labs? I assume it's on the Saber Saleem page, and you'd be the contact in the States for SGS. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have labs. If you're working with SGS for your testing, then yeah, we have a special testing coordinator whose office is right next to mine, who can coordinate any type of testing that's needed.
And you'll see that there's
throughout
a list.
The world.
Thank you. That the Saudi government gives a list of the accredited agencies. So let me know if people have trouble finding that. And then if you work with SGS, you could start with Joel. So sorry to interrupt, but I wanted just for you to explain how your interaction with the government and the other accredited labs and third-party agencies.
Right. Now, keep in mind that the certification bodies, there are others. You know, it's not only SGS. The labs, most of the certification bodies do the testing as well. But there are labs who are not certification bodies. So it's not like you have to work through one of the certification bodies to do the testing. The testing just has to be from a lab that's ISO 17025. That's the important thing.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
All right. That kind of completes my presentation. Sure, there's questions. There's my contact information.
Excellent. And we'll make sure to send this out. And I wanted to mention to everyone, we have a number of questions coming in. So thanks, people. There's some good questions. In a minute, we'll switch to the list of additional products. We're also going to have a SEMA news article on the the program, so we'll have additional information on that. So let's go to some questions. You ready, Joel?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you've done a great job of answering a number of them. Could you talk a little bit more about, this is a question we received. Can you talk about a little bit more about how products are grouped together?
Yes. So the important thing to remember about that is you can have product groupings into families. So if you have multiple models of particular product, you can group those together. Now, Saudi Arabia, when they deal with the HS code, they go up to 12 digits. Remember that. However, when you're doing the groupings, you can go down to 6. So it's 6-digit on the HS code. The product description needs to match. The country of origin has to match, as well as the manufacturer. If you have different manufacturers of the same product, they cannot be on the same certificate. They have to be separated.
Super. I have two questions here about labeling. Yeah, the first is, and they're very similar, so you probably can answer both. Does product info have to be printed in Arabic on the packaging, or can it be printed and sent with the shipping documents? And the second question is similar. Does the label have to include the information in Arabic?
It needs to be printed on the packaging, the outer packaging, what they call the primary packaging of the product. So, if it's all boxed together, it's on that outer packaging of that particular product. Regarding the Arabic, anything that's dealing with safety, they're very strict about the markings being in Arabic. So that's especially relevant dealing with lubricants. In dealing so much with auto parts, not so much. There may be a few things here and there that they want in Arabic, but it's a little more lenient. However, dealing with lubricants and any kind of chemical in general, they're very strict regarding anything dealing with safety being in Arabic.
Right. One of the other questions I have are, can these be in the form of stickers that the importer adds once they arrive in country?
They don't like to do it that way. When dealing with stickers, their preference is what they call Mylar industrial tape or industrial level stickers. Basically, what they'll do is, if the shipment gets audited, they'll take water between their fingers and they'll rub it on the sticker. And if it rubs off, that's going to be confiscated for failing to comply with the marking requirements. So it has to be able to withstand like a water rub.
Okay. So this is something that we can follow up as well. So it sounds like if they're checking out the shipment, it has to be put on by the manufacturer before it leaves us?
Yes.
We have another question here. If the factory tours need to be only done once for the products, what are they looking for? What does the U.S. company need to do to prepare? And if you could review those costs again, you mentioned something with costs. So the question again is, does the factory tour need to be done only once? What are the officials looking for? Who actually does the tour? And what does the U.S. company need to do to prepare? And lastly, the costs.
Okay, so I'll start with the cost. The cost is $1,200 plus travel for a factory audit. All right. Now, there is a checklist that we have. We have a full checklist that we send directly to the factory so that they know exactly what the auditor is going to be looking for. Okay. It's more of like a mini ISO 9001, not quite as intrusive though. Mostly they're going to be checking the calibration records and the quality manual. That's really the extent of the audit. So they're not going to be turning anything on to make sure it works or going through the entire assembly line or anything like that. It's mostly checking of records, calibration records, and making sure that there's a quality management system in place.
Great. If anyone has any more questions related to the factory tour, just send them along. I have another good question here. Who who requests the testing of the product? Is it the manufacturer, the importer, and who owns the results? Could you talk about how that works and how is that typically handled?
Right. So a lot of the major manufacturers don't want anyone testing their products. So most of the time, what they'll do is they'll send the test reports directly to SGS. They'll say, here is our test report. It's confidential, it's proprietary. You know, we'll go through the whole NDA process with them, non-disclosure agreement. But for some manufacturers, they're not going to send out that information. So you may have to get it tested on your own. In that case, you send it to the lab, whether that's our lab or another lab, and that test report is yours. So that's yours to keep. We don't control who keeps the test report. Basically, if you request it, you pay for it, it's your test report. And that goes for whether it's a supplier or an importer.
Great. If the next question relates also to the testing, one of the companies is asking, says that they have 3 distributors throughout Saudi Arabia. Say they, as the manufacturer, handle the test reports. Who goes on to the Saber system to register? Is it each importer? And can they all use the same test results because it's the same products?
Yes, you can use the same test results. That's definitely what I would advise. As for the who has to apply for the Saber request, each importer has to apply for their own. So company A cannot use a request or a PCOC that was issued to company B. You have to get your own. It's going to mention the exporter, the manufacturer, and the importer on the PCOC. So those all have to match every single time. Every time.
Great.
Each importer's got to get their own.
You got it. Another question is, I make air intake systems. It doesn't appear that there is a technical regulation. Could you talk about what I have to do? What does a self-declaration for my product look like? Could you talk about that? Because I don't see air intake systems on this list. So it looks like it's a self-declaration. What is a self-declaration and how would I go about handling that?
Okay, so in a case where product is not regulated, by the way, the Saber will tell you whether it's regulated or not. When you're inputting or the importer is inputting that information in the Saber, they're gonna have to put the HS code, product description, manufacturer, all of that information. And Saber will separate it for you. It will say regulated or non-regulated. If it says non-regulated, that's where you have to do the self-declaration. Now, I do have a copy of the self-declaration form, Linda. I'll send that to you after. You can kind of distribute that out to everyone. Basically, it's the importer's taking responsibility for the safety and quality of the product. That's what it is. Now, when they do that, in case that the product is audited, they may want to have some sort of backup to say, hey, look, we did check. If there's any problems with the product, the importer will have some backup to say, hey, look, we checked it. Here's the test report. It was checked by SGS. We do have a service that we offer where we verify that the product meets the standards for Saudi Arabia. That is an optional program. The importer does not have to do that. It's only in cases where they want to be safe in case they have any problems later on. But it's completely the responsibility of the importer to verify or basically vouch for the product.
Perfect. Next question. Does this Saber Saleem, is there any technical regulations regarding auto polishes and things like buffing pads?
Very likely it won't fall into the auto parts regulations. Basically, any question that you have regarding specific products, the best thing to do would be to send it to me by email, and I can reach out to the certification center and let you know of any type of requirements, whether it's regulated or not regulated. And also, once your importer puts it in the Saber, they're going to know anyway.
Okay, so what would be good is if we could send you a few of these that maybe you could check as follow-up, Joel.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That would be great. And then what about shop equipment? That was another question from someone on the phone.
Kind of the same answer as previous. It's not going to fall into a technical regulation for auto parts, but if you have things like hydraulic lifts, anything like that, then you can pretty much be assured there's going to be a technical regulation for it, and it would have to go through the certification process.
Okay.
It just wouldn't be an auto parts regulation.
Right.
Something dealing with heavy machinery or something like that.
Yeah, I saw a few technical regulations regarding machinery, so we could see if that's included. Any other questions? Yeah, so again, there was the question about shop equipment. We talked about labeling, the factory tours. Let me see what else. How often do products need to be tested?
Very good question. So depending on the product, there's different lengths. For chemical products, right now, as of like last week, it's 1 year. So if you have oils, transmission fluids, things like that, motor oil, that testing has to be done on a yearly basis. SGS is working with SASO to try and get that extended, but right now that's the standard. Now for other products, if you're dealing with like nuts and bolts, things that are just more mechanical, not electrical in nature, they really haven't set a particular time for the test report, because that's not going to change. If you're dealing with something electrical, it was 3 years. As of last week, that test report now can reach up to 5 years.
Great. So it is in flux. That one seems to be some changes there.
Yeah, for quite some time, we were trying to get that 3 years extended. Last week, we finally got SASO to relent some. So that was a success we had with that.
Yes. With that motor oil, what would that fall under? Which technical regulation is that?
It's a technical regulation for lubricants.
Okay, so it's a lubricant one.
Yes.
So for everyone on this call, we've got the first translation of a number of these regulations, and we're going and just trying to put them in real English. They're in kind of English. So now we're trying to put them in English, and we'll get those out as well. Could you talk a little about, you've mentioned ISO 9000 and other ISO. Could you talk about that role in this whole process?
Okay, so ISO 9001 basically says that the manufacturing process meets a certain standard of quality, that they have a quality management system in place. It's checked every year. It's a good thing to have. It's not mandatory for Saudi, but it's good to have. The reason for that is sometimes for some products, the products have to be tested at an outside lab. So it has to go to ISO 17025. It doesn't matter whether the manufacturer is ISO 9001 or not. However, there are other times where it does not necessarily have to go to an outside lab. We can accept the internal test reports from the manufacturer if the manufacturer is ISO 9001. That's where that comes in handy, because if the manufacturer is not ISO 9001, it's going to have to go to an outside lab anyway. But for some products that don't have the specific requirement for outside testing, we can accept the manufacturer's internal test reports as long as the manufacturer is ISO 9001.
Great.
Also, can I add on to that? For lubricants, there's a requirement for ISO 14001. That's an environmental standard that Saudi likes to follow for certain products, chemicals and lubricants being one of them. So the manufacturer will not necessarily have to have ISO 14001, but they do have to have an environmental policy in place.
Okay. A question came, what is the cost of the self-declaration? Is there a cost associated with it?
There is a cost in Saber. There's no cost for to SGS, because obviously SGS is not even involved in it. It was 500 SAR, which comes out to about roughly $150. They reduced it for the time being due to the whole COVID-19 to 375 SAR, which is about $100. But they say that's temporary right now. I'm glad you asked that because there was something that I did not mention earlier regarding the PCOC and the SC. And I apologize for neglecting to mention that. There are actually two sets of fees for PCOC and a shipment certificate. All right. The $533 and the $1,200 that I mentioned for PCOC, those are fees paid directly to SGS. Now, that fee is mandated by SASO, so it's not something that SGS has control over. Now, when the importer goes in and they request the PCOC and the SC, there's a fee that they have to pay directly to SASO. It's not paid to SGS, but they pay that fee directly to SASO. It's $150 for each PCOC and $150 for each SC. So there's actually two sets of fees each time. One paid directly to SASO, one paid to SGS, or whoever your certification body is.
Great. For the test results, U.S. companies don't typically third-party test. It's not the process in the States. It's not like TÜV in Germany or the Australian system. Have you, so what sort of test requirements are you requesting of companies for those products that are, for which you need third-party testing? How does that work? What are you typically requesting?
Well, that list can get extensive depending on the product. I mean, it's really kind of hard to get specifics at this point without dealing with a specific product. Saudi does have certain test requirements for certain products. They have a particular standard. Usually it's an international standard or a Gulf standard that has the exact requirements on there. So that's what we follow. To give specifics, we're going to need a specific product. That comes later on in the process.
Great, thank you. That makes sense. Any other questions? If people want to type that in, I think you've done a great job, Joel, of answering this long list. So we've mentioned that it looks like at least 4 of the regulations clearly deal with auto parts. It's the spare parts, auto parts, spare parts, lubricants, car batteries, tires. And then for others, they might fall into, Joel, you were mentioning, well, motor oil would fall into lubricants as well, correct? And tires, it's more just referring to the GSO standard.
Exactly, yes.
And those seem to be the 4 that are the ones that are relevant. Not talking about the shop equipment, that would probably fall under those 2 or so, machinery. But that seems to generally cover, the universe. And, that might change, but for now, the products listed, in fact, it was very interesting. In the spare parts regulation, it specifies that products like engines and chassis and a number of other products, they specifically state that they're not covered. Might change, but at this point, they're not covered. So, yeah, anything else that you'd like to add, Joel?
Not really. I would say that the VIP program is probably the best way to go about entering everything in Saudi Arabia, particularly for importers. Like I said, it saves you a lot of trouble, a lot of money. I will be at the, assuming it happens, which I hope it does, Apex SEMA show in Vegas this year.
Excellent.
So please feel free to reach out to me. I can schedule meetings with anybody while I'm there.
Wonderful. And we're going to have a series of roundtables on the Monday before the show starts, and one of them will be on the Middle East. So it would also be relevant then as well, because we'll be talking about obstacles, opportunities, and just things such as this that manufacturers should be aware of. One other thing I want to mention, and Joel was alluding to it, is the idea that even though it's the importer who is responsible for listing the products on the Saber system, if they come to you and they're saying they're having difficulty or they just can't do it, there is a way for you to help guide the importers to get that done. So part of this session today was for you to be aware of it. I know a number of you have been receiving emails from your distributors. So the purpose of this session and then the follow-up material that we'll be sending is so that you become educated on the program and you can help your importer. I was in Saudi in early March, and there was concern from the importers. They were saying that this system seems hard for them. It was something that's new and newly being enforced. They are aware of it, and they were quite concerned about it. They really didn't know how to register it. And so I think that if they reach out to you, post this session, post the information we provide, that hopefully you'll be in a position, each of you, to assist them. So thank you, everyone. I wanted to mention again that on the 17th of June, we have the second session on exporting best practices. It's going to be on protecting your brands abroad. And then we'll be doing a series of other sessions as well over the summer. And then we look forward to seeing you. The SEMA show and PRI will be taking place. And we've got a number of programs planned there. And we have 3 trips. So what we've done is combine the trips we were going to do in 2020 and 21 and put them all in 21. There are grants available from the federal government, from various states. So look forward to working with you on that. And as I mentioned, the webinars are going to be always listed in eNews. And at the top, you see SEMA.org/international. They'll be listed there as well. And we'll also list at SEMA.org/international the recording. So you'll be able to go back and listen to the recordings of the SEMA webinars. Also, we have a large list of webinars that are available on demand. And there's 30 or 40 up already, and we're constantly adding more. The U.S. Department of Commerce are doing lots of webinars, and they're all listed. Any that are free of charge and available on demand and related to exporting, we've listed. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for giving us the time today. We hope this was useful and look forward to following up with you on this market and many others. Bye, everyone, and thank you.